Caution. The AJ and Quill show contains D&D content and is intended for a D&D audience. And, besides that, they're really weird. Hi everyone, welcome to Meta Adjacent, your stop for player tactics in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. As always, I'm Professor AJ, and with me is my fearless companion, Quill the Dragon. Say hi, Quill.
Greetings, puny humans. Prepare to absorb the knowledge Quill will dispense with his mighty jaws.
Well, that bell means class has started. Go grab a character sheet and some 20-sided dice and let's get going.
So, what are we covering today?
Now, we've been doing a series covering the subclasses that have been redone inside the new Tal'Dorei Reborn campaign setting.
And it's been critical role level fun.
And today, let's not stop the fun, we're covering the Runechild Sorcerer. Now, call it luck, call it breeding, call it fate. Your character was meant for magical greatness. But, unlike warlocks or wizards who are beholden to the fickle whims of an otherworldly patron, or the countless hours of study necessary to grasp the strands of magic, you are a sorcerer, and the origins of your arcane power define your very existence. And, more importantly, you, as a player, get to define that power. Sorcerers are the natural arcane spellcasters of the Dungeons & Dragons world. This means they cast the same spells that wizards do.
And sorcerers, like wizards, have the smallest hit die of any class, a D6.
Right, and due to their lack of any armor proficiency or proficiency with martial weapons, this strongly indicates that sorcerers are meant to stay out of melee combat, far away, and hopefully behind as much cover as possible.
Magic is part of a sorcerer, and they tap into the raw font of arcane energy within themselves to harness and manipulate awesome and unexplained arcane powers.
Right, and this is why the sorcerer's spellcasting ability is charisma.
Something dragons have in spades.
Now, because this is their primary spellcasting stat, that means it's also their primary offensive ability. Now, if they make dexterity their primary defensive stat as opposed to constitution, this helps compensate for their lack of armor class.
But they have to make sure they don't take any hits.
Now, we would qualify sorcerers under the caster DPS ability profile, and this is more commonly known as a glass cannon.
Caster DPS typically focus less on controlling the battlefield and much more on dealing direct damage with long-range spells.
Right, and you'll need to keep this in mind when you're selecting spells for your sorcerer.
Because they have a limited supply.
Now, Caster DPS is a long-range character that uses magic to deal damage. They protect themselves by avoiding damage,
typically by using distance, cover, and dexterity.
And relatively, they're pretty stationary. They don't move around very much.
If they have to move at all, it's to get out from behind cover to attack, then immediately back into cover.
Now, keep in mind, there are some subclasses of sorcerer that benefit more from behaving much more like a support caster. This would mean that Constitution is their primary defensive ability, but that's only because, due to certain subclass features and spells that they can pick, they're much better off being closer to the front line of combat.
But the Runechild isn't this.
Now, sorcerers are arcane spellcasters exactly like wizards, but the key difference between a sorcerer and a wizard is that a wizard studies, and a sorcerer ad-libs.
At second level, sorcerers get the Font of Magic feature, which grants them sorcery points.
Now, sorcery points are kind of like an arcane currency.
You spend sorcery points on subclass features.
And you have as many sorcery points as you have levels in the sorcerer class.
And you regain all your sorcery points once you complete a long rest.
Now, at second level, when you gain this feature, the only thing you can do with those sorcery points is to spend them on flexible casting.
This gives you more spell slots.
Now, you can convert sorcery points into spell slots, or spell slots into more sorcery points. Now, at third level, sorcerers gain one of the most iconic features of the entire class, metamagic.
You spend sorcery points on metamagic. This lets you customize your spells.
This is why we say sorcerers ad-lib their spells. They create them rather than studying them.
Metamagic is a system of arcane options that allow your sorcerer to alter the power and manifestation of your spells to suit the sorcerer's whims.
Now, it's important to note that your metamagic options are limited. You can only select so many. It's 2 when you first get this, then another at 10, then 1 at 17th. That's 4 total over your entire adventuring career.
The metamagic you choose is one of the most important decisions a sorcerer makes.
Right, especially since you don't want to pick metamagic options that don't harmonize with the spells you already have selected.
That's because certain metamagics only apply to certain spells.
Right, and vice versa. You don't want to pick new spells that don't really complement your existing metamagic options.
Now you can pick what you want, but some generally good options that we almost always choose are
Quicken Spell. Now, it's important to remember that Quicken Spell doesn't work with any spell that already uses your bonus action to cast it.
Also remember that if you cast a leveled spell as a bonus action, the only spell you can cast with your action is a cantrip.
Right, but if you cast one of your leveled spells as a bonus action, you have a ton of options to use your action. You can still cast your spell and then attack, or dash, or dodge, or disengage, or hide, search, or use an item. And you do all this in the same turn.
This is a huge boost to your action economy.
And you can even double down on cantrips. Say if you got the Eldritch Blast cantrip from somewhere.
Like your typical Sore Lock, Laudna.
You can cast a cantrip, and then you cast the exact same cantrip again as a bonus action. This really packs on the damage. Twin Spell. Now, Twin Spell only works with any ranged spell that affects only one target. Now, this is great for a caster DPS.
And it's amazing when you use it on spells like Haste, Greater Invisibility, or Hold Person.
Right, it's downright unfair, but so awesome. Empowered Spell. Works with any damaging spell, and it can be combined with any other metamagic option. Now this is cool because you usually can't stack metamagics on top of each other for the same spell, but with this one you can.
This is great for area effect spells like Fireball, or spells like Magic Missile.
Right, you can help alleviate some of those ones you might roll. But it's amazing because the sorcery point cost for this doesn't increase with the number of targets you're after.
Now you can use these guidelines to make some standing decisions about when you want to use your metamagic and under what conditions you would use it.
And as you use this, you'll start to get a feel for when you're going to want to use metamagic and when you're not going to.
As a standing decision, if you think you will need to spend your sorcery points on more spells rather than customizing your spells or any other subclass feature, then use the extra sorcery points to buy spell slots.
And spend your sorcery points on metamagic only if customizing a spell will benefit you more than casting any other spell.
Simple.
Now remember, with the conversion, it's designed so that you lose energy every time you convert between sorcery points and spell slots. So don't rely on ping-ponging back and forth, you'll just waste all your energy.
Another key point people need to ask is, how many sorcery points should I spend?
Now that's important because people have a tendency to try to hold on to things, and the more you hold on to, the less you can use, so you're going to be less effective. Now your sorcery points recharge on a long rest, and according to the DMG, the average adventuring day consists of 6 encounters with 2 long rests in between.
Basically, this means you should spend at least 1/6 your total sorcery points every encounter.
Right, that means at 6th level you would want to spend at least 1 sorcery point for every encounter you come across.
But there's a caveat here.
You see, the game designers did a survey and they found out that the average number of encounters between long rests for a regular party is exactly 1.
This means that the sorcerer should just go nuts. Spend every sorcery point you have at every encounter.
Now, what does this really mean? It means that 6 encounters per day is more indicative of a combat-heavy dungeon crawl. So if you're in a dungeon, you know this is going to be a tough slog, then you want to reserve your sorcery points.
Otherwise, just feel free to spend every sorcery point you have every encounter.
Now that's general combat for a sorcerer. You want to stay at range, behind as much cover as possible, sneaking out only to cast damaging spells into combat. Rinse and repeat.
Use metamagic to enhance this.
But let's see what the Runechild Sorcerer adds to this. Now one of the first questions any sorcerer should ask is, where does my arcane power come from?
Let's see what it says for the Runechild.
The weave and flow of magic is mysterious and feared by many. Many study the nature of the arcane in hopes of learning how to harness it, while sorcerers carry an innate talent to sculpt and wield the errant strands of power that shape the world. Some sorcerers occasionally find their bodies itself becomes a conduit for such energies, their flesh collecting and storing remnants of their magic in the form of natural runes. These anomalies are known in erudite circles as Runechildren, or Runechild Sorcerers. The talents of a Runechild are rare indeed. Many are sought after for study by mages and scholars alike, driven by a prevalent belief that the secrets within their body can help to understand many mysteries of the arcane. Others seek to enslave them, using their bodies as tortured spell batteries for their own diabolical pursuits. Their subjugation throughout history has driven the few that exist this day into hiding their essence, a task that is not easy given the revealing nature of their gifts. That's a super cool place for their arcane energy to come from. Essence Rune. At level 1, your body has begun to express your innate magic as runes traced out across your skin. You begin with 1 Essence Rune, and gain an additional rune whenever you gain a level in this class. Runes can manifest anywhere on your body, but the first usually manifests on the forehead. They remain invisible when inert. At the end of a turn where you spend any number of sorcery points, an equal number of Essence Runes glow with stored energy, becoming charged runes. You can use these charged runes to power your Runechild subclass features. Also, as a bonus action, you can spend a sorcery point to convert 2 Essence Runes into charged runes. If you have 5 or more charged runes, you emit bright light in a 5-foot radius and dim light for an additional 5 feet beyond that. If you expand a charged rune to use one of your Runechild features, it returns to being an inert Essence Rune. Any charged rune also reverts to an inert rune after you finish a long rest. Now this is super cool. It gives you a secondary resource to use that's built up by spending your sorcery points.
This is more incentive to spend your sorcery points freely.
Right, so this makes it kind of like a builder-spender class, kind of like a rogue in World of Warcraft if you ever played that. You build up your runes and then you spend them on additional abilities.
But what abilities?
Rune magic. Beginning at first level, you learn additional spells when you reach certain levels in this class. Each of these spells counts as a sorcerer spell for you, but it doesn't count against the number of sorcery spells you know. Now that's pretty cool. Additional spells on a sorcerer is always welcome. When you gain a level in this class, you can replace one spell granted from this feature with another spell of the same level. The new spell must be an abjuration or transmutation spell from the sorcerer or wizard list. Now that's pretty cool. We're seeing this a lot more. Now their spell list is pretty cool, and being able to swap out for abjuration or transmutation spells is pretty awesome.
Those are 2 powerful schools of magic, and they have some of the best spells.
Glyphs of Aegis. Also beginning at first level, you can release the stored arcane power within your runes to absorb or deflect a threatening attack. Whenever you take damage, you can use a reaction to expend any number of charged runes. Roll a d6 per charged rune you expend and reduce the damage by that total. At 6th level, you can touch a creature as an action and expend up to 3 charged runes to transfer your protective power to it for up to 1 hour. The next time a creature takes damage within the next hour, it rolls a 1d6 per charged rune spent and reduces the damage by that total. You can't transfer this power to a creature that already is under the effect of a Glyph of Aegis. And at 14th level, your Glyph of Aegis die becomes 1d8. Now that's pretty cool. It's going to give you more staying power in combat, and you're not going to be as worried at range from taking hits.
Also remember, if you reduce the damage to 0, there is no damage to have to make a concentration check to maintain your spells.
Sigillic Augmentation. Upon reaching 6th level, you can channel your runes to temporarily bolster your physical capabilities. When you make a strength, dexterity, or constitution ability check, you can expend a charged rune as a reaction to gain advantage on that roll. In addition, when you are forced to make a strength, dexterity, or constitution saving throw, you can use your reaction and expend a charged rune to gain advantage on the saving throw. Once you use this feature in this manner, you can't use it this way again until you complete a long rest.
Now that's pretty self-explanatory and pretty useful. As a standing decision, use this whenever it comes up.
Manifest inscriptions. At 6th level, you can reveal hidden glyphs and enchantments that surround you. As an action, you can expend a charged rune to reveal any hidden or invisible arcane trap, mark, rune, ward, sensor, or glyph within 60 feet of you. They glow with a dim light in a 5-foot radius for 1 minute.
You have advantage on Intelligence Arcana checks to discern the nature of any magic revealed this way for the duration. If the glyphs you reveal mean something in a language you can't understand, you can understand them while they're glowing as if you knew that language.
Runic Torrent. Upon reaching 14th level, you can channel runic energy to overpower even the staunchest of defenses. Whenever you cast a spell, you can expend 2 charged runes to cause that spell to deal force damage instead of its usual type. Additionally, all creatures targeted by the spell or within the spell's area must succeed on a strength saving throw against your spell save DC or be knocked prone or pushed up to 15 feet away from the spell's point of origin, your choice.
Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you complete a short or a long rest.
Now that's pretty amazing. Force damage is one of the least resisted damage types in the entire game, and being able to knock a creature prone or send it away from you is pretty useful.
But now your keystone ability.
Arcane Exemplar Form. Beginning at 18th level, you can use a bonus action to expend a charged rune and become a being of pure magical energy. While you are in your exemplar form, you gain the following benefits. You have a fly speed of 60 feet. Creatures have disadvantage on saving throws against your sorcerer spells. You have resistance to damage from spells. And whenever you cast a 1st level spell or higher, you regain hit points equal to the spell's level.
Now that's the level you cast it at.
Your exemplar form lasts until the end of your turn. However, you can expend a charged rune at the end of your turn, no action required, to extend the duration until the end of your next turn. When your exemplar form ends, you are stunned until the end of your next turn. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. Now that's pretty wicked, and it's an amazing visual.
This is essentially a rage mechanic.
Right, it gives you a buff and it lets you heal a little bit, but mainly, it gives creatures disadvantage on saving throws against your sorcerer spells. Now that's a pretty big deal.
It's like having a -5 to all their saving throws.
And this will increase your effectiveness in combat.
So if you're in a dungeon crawl, save this for the big boss. Otherwise, throw it up every encounter.
Now, Runechild Sorcerers are from Critical Role's Exandria, Matt Mercer's universe. The most famous example of which is Shaun Gilmore. Oh, stop it, I can't take anymore. You do too much. Okay, go on. Now, these are really fun sorcerers. They have a bit of a different feel, and I like the mechanic.
Honestly, we wish that the 4 Elements monks had a similar mechanic for their spells.
But that's basically it. This is all you need to get started using a Runechild Sorcerer inside your Dungeons & Dragons campaign, and hopefully with the Call of the Neverdeed coming up, you'll be able to use it in that as well.
It's a pretty fun visual, and the mechanics are simple and effective.
Right, and like we've been seeing more of, they're pretty adaptable. You can swap out spells. It's a really good class, so hopefully you enjoy it. Other than that, we hope you have a good one. Thanks for tuning in. We hope we were a little bit informative. Try to love each other, get vaccinated, and we'll see you next time.
Bye!
Yeah.